I speak to you today with mixed feelings. On the one hand, I'm pleased this conference is taking place to confront what I believe to be an existential challenge for both Israel and the Jewish people. On the other, I'm appalled that it needs to take place at all. With everything facing the world in general, the economic aftermath of COVID-19, the upheaval to employment as we know it from technological revolutions of artificial intelligence, the rise of China, the aggression of Iran, or the crisis in American global leadership, and with the very specific challenges facing Israel in terms of social mobility, social divisions, education deficits, and underinvestment in economic infrastructure, how can it be that we're having a conference on the economic cost of annexation? Israel has faced, adapted to, and overcome so many challenges and obstacles that were imposed on it. But among the very tragedies of annexation, if it went ahead, is that the political, diplomatic, democratic, and economic damage would be self-inflicted. But when it comes to the real issues that any government of Israel needs to address, the organs of state lie fallow. I suspect I won't be the only person who hear this week quoting figures from a study by commanders of Israel's security that puts the cost of full annexation at something like $15 billion, around 13% of the government's budget for 2018. Even a limited annexation of some parts of Area C would add around $2.5 billion. And that's to start with, before reckoning with the risks of an intifada breaking out with the collapse of the Palestinian Authority. And of course, annexation would be ruinous for the Palestinians. I'm a trustee of the Port and Trust, an organization that promotes investment and economic development in the West Bank and the closing of economic gaps within Israel as a way of working towards peace in the long term. It's not easy work. Annexation will make it harder still, with intensified restrictions on movement, access to resources, land, and tourism. A disaster for an already struggling Palestinian economy for sure, but it won't be cost-free for Israel either. What do I mean by this? Let's start here in Britain. I can say for certain that we have a pro-Israel government. The ruling Conservative Party, of which I was the chief executive until last year, is overwhelmingly supportive and sympathetic to Israel. So when Boris Johnson takes to the Israeli press to urge Israel not to annex, it's clear that the opposition of annexation is coming not from Israel's enemies, but from its friends. In fact, for Israel enemies, annexation would be a bonus. It would be a shot in the arm for the BDS movement and the delegitimization of Israel. It will take calls for sanctions against Israel away from the fringes of the far left and catapult them into the mainstream of political discourse. It would allow the attempt to isolate Israel and assign a pariah status within the community of nations to be grounded in international law and give its thrust a legitimacy that hitherto it has lacked. The British government and governments throughout Europe will come under increasing pressure over the labeling of settlement goods and over preferential access to the UK and European markets. Annexation would increase that pressure, disturbing a trading relationship with nearly £7 billion a year with the United Kingdom alone. I fear that when the most educated, economically mobile, and globally aware sections of Israel's society see the impact of their government's actions on their country's society, economy, and international standing, many will leave. And Israel's USP, its intellectual and innovative competitive edge, could over time be fatally compromised. What is the prize in annexation? That these are risks worth taking on. When I look to Israel, I see a nation bursting with innovation and big ideas. But I also see a country facing long-term structural challenges that have been neglected for far too long. Israel has dangerous social mobility constraints. For an OECD country, the gap between rich and poor is extraordinary. The country faces inherent productivity constraints due to the long-term failures to invest adequately in infrastructure. The day-to-day responsibilities of government to stimulate the market and provide opportunity for all of its citizens, not just the high-tech few, have been neglected. Education no longer delivers. Israel's school leavers lag the OECD in maths, science, language proficiency, and problem solving. For Israel to continue to afford a first world defense capability, it needs a first world economy, and that can't be taken as a given unless its education is updated and improved. Annexation won't address these problems, but it will make them worse as resources are diverted to manage its long-term fallout. An agenda that doubles down on risk is incomprehensible when, in the wake of the COVID-19 onslaught, the scales are so lopsided to the downside already. The fact is, annexation yields no tangible real-world benefit. It runs counter to Israel's interest and is anathema to Israel's values. The security establishment largely opposes it. The business community opposes it. The diaspora Jewish communities oppose it. But what gives me hope is that the fight against annexation is not a fight between Israel and the diaspora, nor is it a fight between Israel and its enemies. Rather, it's a fight that is uniting Israelis, diaspora Jews, and our friends and partners around the world to stand up for the Israel we believe in, the Israel we invest in, the Israel we love, against a reckless and potentially destructive policy. Let me say this is not about who has a right to the land. It is about ensuring the ongoing resilience of the Jewish state. Me personally, I hold that we Jews have a valid claim vested in historical truth to all the land between the sea and the river. But others have claims too. So 73 years ago, we rightfully determined that we would accept less than what we think is ours to secure in international law a land we call our own, and the first time in over 2,000 years to secure once again our capacity to determine our own destiny. And I know this contested space, this 1/3 of the West Bank that some seek to annex, will not secure our Jewish state. It will imperil it.